But what most people don't realize is confidence is a skill like shooting. And it requires not only time, but daily work.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast, where we interview coaches and leaders to find out not just what they do, but how they do what they do. Becoming the best version of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we're joined by the head of curriculum development at PGC, Chad Songy. Chad played basketball at Millsap College from 2005 to 2009. For the last decade, he's influenced over 10,000 athletes directing the Point Guard College course, creating new curriculum, as well as training up future directors at PGC. Chad is also involved in Strata Athletics that specializes in developing the full person layer by layer. You can learn more at strataathletics.com. Before we hear from Chad, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
What is up?
What's up, man?
How are you? You look so official.
Yeah, I'm trying to be big time. You're actually a part of something groundbreaking here on the Jamodi Podcast. This is my first episode with the lights on.
Listen, I don't have a TV face, so is this a podcast or is this is the video being?
It's so YouTube with the video. So
man, that's pressure. I would have maybe
shaved,
done my hair or something. I don't know.
You look sharp, man. You look sharp. But no, I usually have like more of a dungeon look with the lights off and just this little thing here. But I figured, let's bring some light into this. And
hey, I love bringing light to situations. So
I thought you'd like that.
That's perfect.
I just wanted to thank you so much for giving up your time and coming on. Of all the coaches that I've been able to learn from, sit and listen to over the years, you've been incredibly influential to me through PGC. And so I really appreciate it, man.
Well, hey, I'm glad to be here. And in true unpredicting fashion, I'm going to actually have us do a little improv exercise, which you can surely edit out. But, just to get both our brains firing. And, I'm a lot of times going to throw questions back at you because I love your basketball mind. So, we're going to tell a story one word at a time, and we're going to just go with it and see where it goes. Hey, Lori, give me a noun. Okay, we're going to go with spaghetti, and it's a story about spaghetti. So we can do a period, like you could say, the word, and I could say period, and then it goes back to you. You start the next sentence. I'm going to put 1 minute on the clock. Let's tell a 1 minute story, word by word. We go back and forth for 1 minute. Ready?
I immediately regret having you on.
Clock is clicking. I'm going to start us off. The
restaurant
was
serving
a
horrible
combination
of
many
types
of
noodles
and
sauces
that
did
not
go
with
each other. Period.
Period. Go ahead. Start the next sentence. 20 seconds.
My
sister
loved
the
smorgasbord
of
sauces
and
noodles
that
I
chose
not
to
eat.
Period. 1 minute. Excellent work, Max Saman.
I used, I think, every word that I used had only 2 letters in it.
Smorgasbord? Come on,
right.
Give yourself some credit.
Right.
Give yourself some credit.
That's right. Oh, I'm sweating. I'm warm.
Well, cool. I'm warmed up. So, different brains work in different ways, but I think you're smarter. I'm smarter. Both of us have increased blood flow going through our brain right now. So that's what it's about.
It's like in Billy Madison, when after Billy gets done with his speech and the prompter says, "We are all now dumber for listening to what you just said." That's hopefully that was fun. That was
put
fun.
It at the end and do some bloopers.
Yeah, no, but I'm not surprised that you would have us do something like that, because you're one of the most creative guys. How long have we known each other now?
Ooh, good question. Probably 8-7 years potentially. I think when you and I were teaching together at PGC probably 6 or 7 years ago. Crazy enough. Time flies, man.
Yeah, and I had the pleasure of getting to sit and listen to you and learn from you, and then also have you evaluate the way I teach. And I think really, out of all the guys that I ever had come through and watch the sessions I was a part of, your notes and your feedback, I mean, my players are affected by that every day, and in a good way. And so again,
Not the PTSD that I caused from all the pages of feedback.
no, all good stuff. How do you build confidence in players?
Yeah, so I think this was interesting, and I thought one of your other questions of how you build shooting confidence, because I think they're related but different. And I think there are overarching ways in which I'll help build confidence in all players. And so I'll start with some of those things. Actually, I'll come back to some of those things. I first want to share, I think every human is different. And so confidence is a skill like shooting, like ball handling. And one of the questions I'll ask coaches and athletes is, hey, at your level right now, it's an opinion question. What percentage of success in basketball do you think is mental, and what do you think is physical, right? I've asked this to thousands of athletes and other sports as well, coaches other sports. I'm lucky enough I get to go around the world and teach leadership and communication and mindset and all this stuff. And almost all of them, granted, I mostly work in the age range of high school, college, and pro, but some junior high players as well. Almost all of them at that stage in their career say the game is at least 50% mental or more. So as a youngster, it's probably 90% physical because you just don't have skills.
Right.
And as you get higher, it does change. So it's an opinion question. Where are you in your journey? But then my next question is, okay, if you think the game is 60% mental, or even if you think it's 40% mental, what percentage of your time do you spend on mental habits? And if I was a fly on the wall and I watched players or teams, most of the time in my consulting experience, it's 5 to 10% or less. So I'm not saying if you think the game is 72% mental, you have to exactly spend 72% of your time on mental habits. But what most people don't realize is confidence is a skill like shooting. And it requires not only time, but daily work and intention. And that was one of the things my mentor, Dina Evans, who was my PGC kind of director and sage and mentored me through college basketball and beyond, she flipped the script for me of how I viewed it as less of this thing of like, ooh, sometimes I have it and sometimes I don't. And it's like this mythical thing that comes and goes. And I think your skill will be variable. Your performance will be variable, but your confidence doesn't necessarily have to be tied to those things by what you make things mean, right? You were a great shooter. You understand of I can make a miss mean many things.
Right.
So I try to first with players instill that, hey, this is just like you think about working on your jumping and your weight room and your defense and your ball handling and your shooting. There is a whole section that you should be thinking about confidence. And within that, what do we work on? Many things. So visualization is something that just often isn't taught at all. And so a quick story, I had the chance, I was teaching at our shooting college at PGC, and I had the chance to observing coaches, attend, and there was this old man, and he actually coached the Cleveland Browns way back when. And he was a young offensive coach at that stage in his career. And I think he said he was in his 20s, and he got to coach Jim Brown, one of the greatest players of all time. Running back, he's like, can I tell you a story? And I said, sure, of course. He said, one of my first years there, Jim Brown's in the peak of his career, one of his MVP seasons. And he said, I had never seen a player, and haven't since, that did as much visualization as him. It seemed like, and I asked him, and sometimes he would spend an hour, 2 hours of visualizing per day, like that's what this coach said. And right. I don't know Jim Brown. I haven't, verified this. And so he said, it seemed like he would spend so much time visualizing. And he said there was one particularly great game he had, and I was walking through the locker room and I was picking up, a couple things on my way to the offices, and they were cutting up the film already. And reporters were interviewing him, and they were asking him about, this great run, this great game he had. And he starts describing a run up the right sideline. And he said the detail with which he described how he broke certain tackles, the angle he went, and he said, I was taken aback because I didn't remember that run up the right sideline and the moves he described. And so he said it was such detail that I went up, and they had just finished clipping the offensive plays together. And I watched them, all the running plays, and that play did not happen.
Wow.
And he said Jim Brown had, in his mind, done so much visualization that he couldn't remember the details between a real play
What
and
was different between, yeah, that's
what he
cool.
visualized. Right. But we don't, we say, hey, I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna shoot for an hour, or I'm gonna shoot X number of shots, but we don't think about the visualization reps we might want to do. Obviously you taught a similar thing. One of our mainstays at PGC is a list of positive 10, right? After each practice or each game or training session, controlling where you bring your attention. Energy flows where your attention goes. And so if you're constantly thinking about the negative plays and mistakes you made, like that's where your energy, your mind's attention is going to go. And so it's not to say you can't learn from your mistakes, you shouldn't watch film and all these things, but where are you controlling your attention to? And we all have the ability to control our attention. Yeah, that's why I think meditation is a great practice for athletes to have. So, you know, I'll have athletes do list of 10. Another thing is I'll have athletes rewatch their best games. Not in front of other people, not tell other people they're doing that, but rewatch their highlight film, rewatch their best games. So another anecdote or story, you know, that I share with athletes is LeBron James played Popovich in 2007 in the finals, and they sagged off him and they swept him. He shot terribly, you know, 2007. I remember that.
Yeah.
They gave him like 5 feet of space. 2013, he's with the Heat. He's playing Popovich again in the finals. And I'll never forget, he had the best 3-point shooting season. I haven't looked if that was his all-time greatest, but up to that point, he shot 46, I think, 0.4% from three for the season. Killing it. That's a great 3-point shooting percentage. He really improved his outside shooting. Popovich played 9 games with him. First, I think 3 games, Kawhi was just like 4 feet away from him. And he shot, I think it was 26%. I don't know. Someone, you know, fact checkers might. It was either in the high teens or low 20s. It was half of what his season average was. And I have a friend who knows the coaching staff, and he said that LeBron went to the film guy and said, clip together all of my made outside shots from the season. And it was like, you know, 13, 14 minutes long, like some whatever. And he rewatched it and rewatched it. Now, for the last 4 games, he shot above 50% from 3. And in the game 7, he was 5 for 10. Right. And so there's value in reminding yourself of what you're good at. And so that's another thing, a broad stroking thing I'll have athletes do.
That's really good. One thing I had a question for you, because especially with the visualization, this is all dependent on that they've already done the work, that they've already done the preparation piece. Because one, what can you really visualize if you haven't done the work? But then 2, so one big thing about this is not just the what, but how to do it. So if you're talking to a group of high school coaches that have freshmen through seniors of various ranges of skill and experience, what are some things that you would specifically do to guide them, to help them with visualization, where I mean, you besides just telling a few stories of what those guys do, I love the list of 10.
Yeah, absolutely. So to me, you can visualize not only just shooting, you can visualize any play, right? And so sometimes, like, actually, especially with players who aren't skilled at something, I have to create the belief. And that's the other piece that I was going to answer, is like, okay, actually changing beliefs is the foundation underneath all the confidence, which we don't actually get enough time, you know. But when I worked with a guy he had the best shooting in the Spurs organization. He played in the G League, one of the best, I think, outside shooters in the world. And I worked with him for 3 months last year. And this guy shot millions of shots, right? But all he needed was the mental stuff. And so we actually worked on changing his beliefs. And that's, I think, it's a deeper level.
Yeah.
But for players who might struggle on a defensive rep, I will often ask, hey, go over to the sideline. And this is after trust is had. This isn't like, you know, I wouldn't come in and do this when someone met me for the first time. This is when a coach has a relationship with a player. And this wouldn't be their first ever rep of visualization, right? We would have done visualization many times. But an in-practice example is like, hey, go over to the sideline. I want you to just turn around, close your eyes, or grab some water, close your eyes. And I want you to visualize yourself making that rotation faster the next repetition, right? And just that, like, next time, so the belief of that mistake actually leads to, I can make that rotation quicker and I could be in that passing lane the next possession.
And do you think too that would be a great way, you know, for coaches, instead of just coaching to the negative action that you saw and taking that negative turn to it, here's the action that we need to improve on. And this is a really constructive way that you can help a player get there. Do you see that being a better way to do it than what's natural, which is it's too slow. You got to be quicker. You got to get there.
You got to get there. Yeah. And so I think it also instills a belief of like, I believe in you and I believe in your progress. But once again, there's got to be a lot of trust. And, and to me, a high schooler can think it's silly or stupid if they haven't already done visualization, then they'll just write you off and they'll go make some comment under their breath and they'll close their eyes and laugh and whatever. But it's like, hey, actually, I would have set it all up by explaining visualization, explaining how great players use it, having done some visualization around shooting, done some visualization around, okay, tomorrow we're going to visualize yourself making plays in this big game that we have. I would end if we have a Friday big game, my Thursday evening practice would end with 10 or 15 minutes of visualization.
Love that.
And giving them freedom to just imagine yourself making plays. You know where you're at in our offense. You know, pick a different spot. And the one thing that you have to teach in visualization, and I'm not like huge on meditation, but I had this great former athlete, college athlete, who's now a world-renowned meditation coach, explained to me that when you are trying to do visualization or meditation and you get distracted, I used to think I sucked at meditation or visualization because I would get so distracted. I think about what I got to do or food I'm going to eat or what is it, whatever. And he said, when you get distracted, your mind noticing and bringing it back to the mantra or bringing it back to the visualization or bringing it back to your breath is actually what you're trying to get stronger at. And that was mind blowing for me. It's like, he said, that's the bicep curl in the weight room for your attention. The more you can notice and bring it back, you're actually strengthening your attention every rep that happens. Doesn't mean you're bad at it. And so then when you're in a game, you need to move your attention to, it's the last second shot. Coach just made the inbounds play. I'm about to get a shot off. Can I move my attention with all the distractions to like, what does that perfect feeling feel like as it comes off my hands? Can I visualize the ball going in? That requires a lot of mental attention and control of that attention.
Being present. Yeah, being present. That's huge.
So I would, what are examples? I would often in practice, like, hey, you make a mistake. Cool. I'd use the questioning method rather than just tell them what they did wrong. Hey, what did you see? Or what could you have done differently? If they tell me the right answer, then it's not a knowledge issue. It might be a processing speed, their working memory. So you have a long-term memory, your working memory is what's processing all that and you choosing to move. It might be a working memory problem. But if they have the knowledge, at least I want them to start with visualizing what the best action will be on the next rep or them doing it differently on the next rep. And then it just communicates a whole lot of belief and trust that I think builds to your culture.
Yeah. What I love about the question method, it's been a struggle for me over the years, especially you're in a gym with 35 guys by yourself and you've got 43 minutes and you see something. Do you have the 10 to 15 seconds really to spend? But it is important. But I think it really helps you as a coach, because you just said it a second ago. Is it a knowledge issue? Like they really don't know what to do, or is there something else? And if you just give them the correction, you never get to assess or find out what's really behind why they're late, why they're behind. I think it's huge.
The bigger question I'd actually ask back to that is, you don't have the 15 seconds, but do you spend time on culture? And if the answer is yes, then that's a mini moment of culture. I think doing culture days is not a high ROI. The best coaches in the country, when I go watch, collegiate practices or professional practices, it's sprinkled in almost like every 3 or 4 minutes, there's a cultural moment and it's shorter. Right.
Yeah.
And so most high school coaches, the players tune them out. Why? They're at an age of brain development where autonomy and independence is what they're craving. So, but even as adults, if your boss kept coming to your office every 7 minutes and telling you what you were doing wrong, but you knew what you were doing wrong, you would tune them out. You'd be like, this dude is a blank blank, or this lady is blank blank. So why is it any different? Because we're in a sport, we think, if that young person knows, maybe they don't know. That's why I asked the question. But if they know, and I'm just telling them something they know, it's like the perfect recipe for a rebellious teenager. It's like, coach, they tune you out and they have less buy-in. So then that hurts your culture. So my thing is, it's like, all right, it's a cultural thing. And then also it's just a sign of respect to them. It's like, hey, I'm just checking for understanding. Cool, you got it. All right, let's go work on some mental reps.
I like that.
Or take another physical rep. All right, cool, jump back in. Let's see you try to do it differently.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
So I do think you're one of the best shooting coaches that I've ever been able to be around. And even though we just talked about confidence and it took a few directions, it does really link up with shooting quite a bit. I mean, it's the part of confidence that most people, when they're talking about it, it has to do with their shot and how they feel. It's rarely, I'm just not confident in my rebounding or in my defensive play. Sometimes, but rarely. It's
defense.
Yeah.
In college. Yeah, I mean, you probably can relate to.
So like, now as a coach, defense is what I have lack of confidence in. But teaching shooting confidence, and let's take it within a team. How would you approach a team with overall shooting confidence, and even if it dives into the individual?
I saw a really interesting presentation. So maybe at the end, I'll share the project I'm working on to try to change how technology impacts youth sports in the world. But I'm working with a friend of mine who is a former NBA coach, and the two of us are kind of working on this project. And they shared a video from Noah. I think it's LaRoche, and he had really fascinating teaching. And so he took a Division III program, and only by teaching spacing and principles of spacing, their shot percentage went up dramatically as a team and all as individuals, right? Because basically they got more open shots. So if I'm teaching as a team, the first place I'm actually going to start with is shot selection.
Love that.
Because I can actually make the biggest impact on how many shots go in by them fully understanding shot selection. So whether we use the PGC scale, whether I use some other scale, right? I might even, we're playing around with could AI and could technology like make a shot selection scale for each person, right? And then like throughout the season what yours is. But one cool thing that TJ Rosine does is he'll do a shot selection pop quiz with his players. Have you heard it? So it's 3 columns, and the first column is their score using the PGC framing. So just to explain that to listeners. So a 9, there's no such thing as a 10, no shot you're gonna make every time. A 9 would be an uncontested layup. An 8 would be a contested layup. A 7 would be an uncontested in-range jumper. A 6 would be either contested or out of range. A 5 would be those so-so shots, like those 50-50 shots where like someone shoots it, you're like, no, and it goes in there. Right? Like if you play basketball, those so-so shots. And then like a 3 or 4 would just be like a terrible fadeaway. We don't use 4, we just say 3. So he'll show a clip, and it's like a 10 shot or 15 shot pop quiz. He'll show a clip of his players. Shot goes up, they pause the film before it goes in or out. And then he says, all right, write what you think that is. Let's say they write a 6. And then he says, okay, everyone's written their number. I call that a 5. So then the second column is his scores. And then the third column is the differential. And then however many points they're off is 100 made threes that week in practice, outside of practice. And so it's like, hey, we're going to, at the very least, because some of it is subjective, right? You're going to know as a team where I stand on shot selection. We have a common agreement. So I would teach shot selection, and I honestly teach spacing. And I'm happy to include, I'll share the YouTube video with you. He was working with Australia basketball, so it's public.
Please, at the end, please do. And the other thing you mentioned too. Yeah.
And so fascinating. I would work on spacing, and it would just be like, hey, we're going to take open catch and shoot shots if we can, right? The next thing I would do is also talk about momentum and tempo. So momentum is a real thing, and you're more likely to make the same shot with energy in the crowd. So teaching the difference between, hey, why might a coach get upset with the same shot and not later? What might be, are they on a run? They've scored 4 in a row, and they're just killing you, and you're going to take that shot, and maybe it's a 6, right? Versus we've just scored 3 in a row. We've got 2 steals. we're on fire. Well, that 6 might not really be a 6 because energy elevates human performance. So it's slightly different, right? So I would teach those 2 things. And then I would have them fall in love with competing versus themselves. And I think it's one of the greatest things we can do to instill confidence is not, are you better than Bobby? Are you better than Sarah? Right. And like that competition can be healthy to push you to train more. But it's like, what is your percentages from all these different spots, from these types of shots? And can you get 3% better in the next couple of weeks?
Yep.
Can you get 5% better over the next month? And then you show them that data. In addition to all the other mental exercises we're talking about, there's other mental habits. Like, to me, that's what would I do with a team? I would try to show them data. When you take this shot selection, this is what your improvement is. When you have now spent 6 weeks in the gym before school, look at your shooting percentage go up. You're a better shooter. And then the overarching thing I didn't say, I said I'd come back to the beginning, is like, it's art. Every human is different.
Yep.
And so I can't get in the mind of a player and work deep with them psychologically if I don't know them and I don't know what's going on in their life and I don't have a lot of level of trust. You know, like, as crazy it is, this professional player, you know, he wanted to make one more go at the league, you know. And so before I even agreed to work with him, I sat down with him and his wife and I was like, hey, we're going to get deep in this dude's brain and his psychology. And there has to be a lot of trust here on all accounts. So like, and I developed trust before I did anything in relationship. And so, you know, I don't think you, just because you have been given the label of coach and they're the label of player, you don't have the keys to tinker inside of their mind. And then the other thing is like, and this is not to be sappy and ooey gooey and soft, like, I will get in a player's face. I've grabbed players by the jersey for the non-negotiable, inexcusable things for me, right? And they're different for every coach. For me, it's like, you will never disrespect a teammate in front of, we are warriors together. You will never disrespect the teammate in front of the crowd or whatever, right? And an effort. Like, if someone's not like, I'm not feeling well or I'm injured, like, but I'm choosing to be a butthole,
right,
you know, and just like not bring effort because, you know, I'm saying F you to the team. Outside of those, like, they hang on every word. You and I both can probably remember phrases that our coaches said, specific phrases in certain times. And so that's the burden of being a coach. It's like, you could just be saying something off cuff
and not realize the impact.
And they bring it up in their exit interview, you know, or their parents bring it up. And so I always try to choose to be overboard with like, I believe in you questions or I believe in you statements. And that's just more fun too. Like, why do we coach? We coach to grow young people. And so to like really have someone believe that you see potential in them that maybe other people don't see is a gift that you can give other humans while you're on this planet, that I think is just beautiful. So why not, you know, in all of the language that I choose, when I grab player one-on-one, you know, I speak slowly and I think really intentionally about how can I phrase things, even if I'm getting constructive feedback, in a way that like they feel like, man, this guy believes in me. And then that changes whatever you do say constructively. It changes when it's sourced from that place. So as they're running over, I'll like source from a place. And this is what I think Dina was so good at, is just sourcing from a place of belief in you, sourcing from a place of love. Really, that's what it is. You know,
it definitely makes you go back to your why. In order to coach that way and to do what you're saying, but to be authentic and real about it, your why has to be in the right place. If it's just about winning games, just about trophies, or just about legacy of wins or stuff, then sometimes you won't pull from the place that you're talking about. You'll go to the easy route, which is just do it, or else you won't play. You won't get, you know, you'll go that route, which is common and easier.
But like, okay, Matt, could you tell me your record in 2014?
Well, I've been coaching that long, so
okay, but
no.
In 10 years, right? Like, you're going to remember who comes back to practice.
No doubt. Alumni games, who comes back there, who texts me when I text them every Tuesday, who texts me back. No doubt. Those things.
Who invites you to their wedding? Like, that is what you're going to remember as a coach. Like, yeah, maybe you might have an overall record over the 30 years and that number might, but that's really about you anyway. Like, to me, so much of it is instilling confidence, it's less about me and more about their journey, and how can I show them that I'm with them as a guide on the side on their journey.
Full transparency, I lost sight of that a little bit after my second year here. We were shooting a ton of threes, and we actually ended up making quite a few. That year you just referenced, we made quite a few. And so in NFHS, they have national records that go back 100 years. And I'm doing, they have these forms that you got to print out, and I'm filling them out about all the records that individually some of our guys set. We made 432 threes on this list. That's like 5th all time in the history of high school. I'm filling all this out. And I sent in like 11 documents to them. And about a month later, I get a response. Oh, because you're at a private school, we don't see that. We don't recognize you. And it was just like this. Oh, like it really, like, not just, it doesn't matter to NFHS, but even I think to my players, they didn't care about that stuff near as much as I was starting to care about it. And it was just a great moment that I don't know if that happens to coaches, where they send in some stuff and people basically tell them, we don't care about what you did. But it was humbling, but it's a great reminder that I think that you gave us, that you're right. Do they look back at the program and feel like that they grew, not just as players, but as human beings? And so I appreciate that reminder.
Far more special to me is like, you've created a system that sure might break records, but the system you've created encourages the behavior for them to go in before school and shoot hundreds of shots. So what they will most likely look back on in 10 years is that you taught them the habit of work, right? On a skill, on mastering a craft.
Yeah, delayed gratification for sure. Yep.
Delayed gratification. That's a skill that's going to help them in any career they do.
No doubt.
And so I think that's actually the cooler, but your system that's the record you should go for. Is like, how many of those guys talk about that in 10 years?
I've watched you, golly, I don't know how many sessions, and somehow, I mean, you have 80 to 100 different athletes that you just met within a day or two, and you're able to create a culture within that group that is, it's safe for them to take chances, and for them to communicate with each other, which is rare for young people to naturally do anyway. And so, what is some of your favorite culture building activities?
So, like I said, it's a million little things.
Right.
I think there's difference for me at PGC in a session, or going to work with, Brisbane basketball and doing something with them, versus like a coach at a team in practice. I'll answer both.
Sure.
For a large group that have just met, I always take into account, like, they have to see that I care about them and that I know a decent amount of basketball, right? And so the first portion for day one is really that. It's like, I'm showing you I care about you. Two things. I will make their mistake on their names 6 times if I have to. But every time I make a mistake, a few kids, get bothered by it. But actually the mistake shows that I care. Right? Rather than pretending that I've learned your name, I'll ask you a 5th time. And it shows, like, at the end of the day, it shows I suck at names, but it shows that I care enough to learn your name. And I think that little thing is a little cultural thing that matters.
Yeah.
Right? The second thing is, I generally, when I go up to a player, my first interaction is always going to be highlight something they're doing well. And a lot of them now, they're so used to coaches doing it, like a sandwich, a positive sandwich, whatever. And they're expecting me to say something, critique. And I just walk away, and they're just like shook. It's like, I pointed out, they made a mistake, but I pointed out and I made a note of the mistake they made, and I'm going to keep that in my mental record, or actually write it down. But my first interaction is just like about building trust, and it's highlighting something they did well, even if it's a professional, in Australia, or if it's a high schooler in America. With groups as well, I highlight the behavior I want to see, and so collegiate and professional athletes understand this more at the high school age stage, junior high, high school for sure. They haven't yet learned that mistakes is the road to improvement. And I actually with the proper technique and the right effort and all that sort of stuff, mistakes is how I get better. And so you have to highlight the people going after it.
Yeah.
So we might start and we're doing something, and I actually highlight, I'm like, you know what? Most coaches wouldn't recognize, but Braden's going so hard that he actually lost the ball 7 times. And it's not because he's the least skilled person. He's probably one of the higher skilled people in here, but he went after it so hard. And so I'm highlighting that behavior. And at the end of the day, like, you highlight the behavior you want to see because they want our attention at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I create a safe space by highlighting players who are starting to buy into the culture of error. It's totally different with a team. So I coached a team out in Hawaii. I was very fortunate to work with a team. And
where was my call that when you were going out there?
I just went in for the first month, and then I went in for the month before the state championship. And we won 2 state championships. It was amazing. I got to coach this team, really consult for them for 2 years, and then they said, "Hey, can you just come and be a part of the team for 2 months?" It's a shortened season in Hawaii too. That's the other reason I agreed to it. It's like November to February, so it's really, I just missed the middle month. And so when I went in, and this is one thing I just so respect, and I'm bringing up his name again. I've seen, and Brad Stevens is amazing, and Coach K, and I've seen the best. I've seen them all, and Brad Stevens and Coach K are up there with, and Gino are up there with culture. I think TJ Rosine is the new Don Meyer of Division II. Like, he's just so good. And so I saw him one time, second or third practice, new players, and this is like, you're establishing your culture. The guys went out for water break, and there's a concession stand pizza thing for students nearby, and one of them went and got Powerade instead of getting water. In essence, like, I don't know, 3 cents of Powerade in a little cup. And he stopped the whole practice and brought them in, and like, it was a 20-minute thing. And it was like, we don't take things that aren't ours. We don't, and that was culture. Like, that was like, screw what's happening in basketball. This is the men we're gonna be. And those are the moments where it's like, it's not even about the basketball, really. How do you foster culture? When you see a non-negotiable, you stop everything and you address that non-negotiable without having 20 non-negotiables, right? It's
right.
Like, what is your culture going to sit on? What are the 3 to 4 pillars it's going to sit on? And then there's a hard line in the sand on those 3 or 4 pillars. But it's done in a way of love too. It wasn't like he was embarrassing this person. It was just like, hey, this is what we do here. And I expect the other players, sure, I'm going to make up a name. Jeremiah made that decision. But like, there's 3 other guys who went to the water break with him and said nothing to him.
Yep.
And I'm more disappointed in the leaders for that. So I honestly try to catch all the little moments. When I'm working with a team, or if I'm coaching a team, I would actually try to train my assistant coach to be running either offense, and so I can just focus on one or all of it. And I'm just watching the players on the sideline. I'm watching their body language and their reaction to makes, misses, to plays. I'm watching their reaction to when a coach speaks and when a coach is explaining something. For me in my culture, one of the things I do with the Hawaii team is I always had the camera. I was always recording, and I would at times just stop it and I would just play it. I'd plug it in and say, just listen to your defensive communication for the last 20 seconds. Right. And so that's a cultural thing. It's like, how much do we talk to each other, especially on the defensive end? And they was like, okay, I'm going to record you again and we'll play it in 20 seconds. And then it's like, it's way different because they, now they can hear a piece of our culture. So yeah, I don't know, maybe you can ask me specific follow-up questions, but obviously they have to know you care and trust about it. You have to highlight and celebrate the culture of error and the players who are buying into it. And then to me, it's all the Miller moments of, the players made a turnover and you're laughing on the sideline. I would stop the whole practice and address that. And not to shame that player, but just be like, you're preventing yourself from getting better because you're creating a space now where if you make a mistake, we should laugh back at you. And so it's not about if Sam made the error or Jasmine made the error and you laugh. It's about you're stealing all of our improvement by laughing. And hey, I did stand-up comedy. I love comedy. I think there's a place for comedy in the season. It's a long season. You need those dudes who can make the whole team laugh. But are you laughing with or laughing at?
One thing that you said, I think might free up coaches is so like at the top of most practice plans, you're going to have the quote of the day or the culture piece of the day that we cover right at the beginning of practice. And it's almost like we check that box, culture for the day, done.
It's done.
And now all the important stuff is coming now that we have to do. But I think what might be more freeing is we have our, like what TJ did, we have our practice plan, but it's more of just a skeleton or a roadmap of where we could get to. But within all of those stops, we are eyes wide open looking for moments to steal and things to grab and ways to shape our culture even more. Like that's freeing to me as a guy that loves a good practice plan and has it timed out and is almost stressing at times. Slow down. If you don't get to something, it's not nearly as important as addressing something that might end up winning a game, yes, but impacting that player and your team's morale and culture later on. So I think that's a great nugget that you gave.
I appreciate it. You know, what separates, and you've experienced some championship programs and you've seen it as well. It's like, it's not what you do, but how you do what you do. And, you know, Gino Aram hasn't created this whole booklet of like insane games, activities, or drills that no one else has seen. It's just like how they go through 5-0 screening is so dramatically different in the energy and the communication and the approach and the hustle than any other team. And so it's like we all get generally the same number of practice hours.
Yeah.
So how you do what you do is more important than what's on there. And less but better. Like build in a 10-minute gap because you're not going to ever get that practice plan on exactly in it. So give yourself a 2-minute wiggle here, you know, in between transitions for a question, then it's like, oh, I don't know. It's the classic, I've got too many things on my to-do list.
That's right.
Like, do 1 or 2 things well in your practice.
And you mentioned it though earlier. That's the art of it. The art of the coaching is, you have a destination. You have some things like our first week of practice that we want to have prepared for our first scrimmage. But within that, there's just so much more to the game and to the things that we're going through.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Biology. What's your BSA score? The Biology Skill Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NIA and NJCAA to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 10-minute, 100-shot test can be taken for free today on the Biology mobile app. Elevate your game.
How do you live out your culture? So that's the question, but I remember at PGC sessions, you really sharing a lot of your daily routine and activities, things that you do, you know, nutritionally or within, you know, physically what you do. And so we're talking about team culture, but for you personally, how do you live out your culture on a daily basis? Because I think that's important for coaches too, or else if you're just saying it, but you're not living it yourself, man, they're going to see that real quick.
Yeah, I think, you know, I had a really beautiful day with John Wooden before he passed, and he was still sharp. So Dina was close with him, and she brought me, and we had breakfast with him, and then spent the day at his house. And I took away 3 things from him. And he said many beautiful things, and we talked a bunch and whatever. But one was, and it's like he would correct me and say, "I'm not a coach, I'm a teacher." You know, and so it changed my mentality when I was 23. I was like, all right, I'm going to be a basketball teacher. I'm not a basketball coach.
I like that.
And then, you know, he's known for this quote, but like it came out many times of like, we haven't taught until they learned, when I was talking about teaching. And then the third is modeling is the best form of teaching. And, you know, I don't think every coach has to be, you know, totally in shape and be able to dunk and but like it all matters. And so I think I don't need to be in shape to beat my players and show them I can still physically shoot or play. I don't do that for that. To me, it's just it's about energy. I want to bring you the most energy I can bring you and the most mental focus. So why I'm going to prioritize sleep above everything else, or at least the space for sleep above everything else. Okay, I struggle with sleeping, but I still prioritize it.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to model that. And what I require from you. And it's even made me rethink about, you know, like asking players to get up at 5 a.m. and what's that, where's the balance, the give and take there, right? Based on their class schedule. I think it's absurd, all the things they have to do now that, you know, is just.
Well, that you'll hear that, well, Kobe used to get up at 4. Well, first of all, there's only one Kobe. And is that necessarily the path that we want every player to take and try to force down. I think that's important.
The other thing is at that stage, like he was a professional athlete.
Right.
I think
Right.
that's the other part too, is people don't realize like he very likely had a long nap midday and then probably went to sleep early. And so, but sleep and then nutrition. I want my players to have more energy. I want to have more energy because fatigue makes cowards of us all. And when you are sleep deprived, you snap on players quicker. You have less patience with everything. 2 days ago I didn't sleep, and I was just like, by the afternoon I was just not myself. And so I think so many people are living in sleep deprivation that becomes the normal to them, and they're just
All right.
like,
What are some things that you do? Because I'm always researching. I want to get an Aura ring that tracks your sleep overnight. Like, so I'm all about it. What are some things you do?
I would outsource to Matthew Kelly. I think he's one of the best, and
Okay.
you can find any podcast with him. What I teach, I do a health course that I teach, and the main things are, you want to have a pattern. You don't want to roll around in your bed. So if you can't sleep after 30 minutes, get up, go read a book, come back, because your brain is highly associative. So you want to associate the bed with your sleep. 3, 2, 1, 3 hours before sleeping, no food or drink. 2 hours before, no blue light, but really your blue light should go down as soon as the sun goes down.
Do you have glasses?
I do, but the thing
Do they work?
I think so to some degree. The thing that it depends on what. So because especially like in social media, it's starting an adrenal system that also makes us more alert. So even if you're not getting blue light, it depends, right? So it depends on what you're doing. And then the one being the 1 hour before sleep, like no work, no, and I would include social media in that. Like just let your brain take a hot shower, because your body has to decrease 2 degrees Fahrenheit before you fall asleep. So a hot shower can sometimes do that. Obviously sleeping in a colder temperature is helpful for that. And then light exposure, I sleep with like a mask most nights.
Do you?
Yeah. Nice. And it took a while. My husband makes fun of me because I bought like 4 before they work, like different ones work. But yeah, I finally found one that fits comfortably and sleep well with. But then the other food and drink is an important one, because so a really interesting one, this more for coaches than athletes, but so I'm forgetting the spinal fluid that now they've figured out goes into your brain each night and kind of whooshes around a lot of the amniotic plaque. I think I'm saying that word right. I might be wrong. But basically the plaque that builds up for all your neuromuscular diseases, MS and dementia and all that's plaque along the sheath of the nervous system. So what's really interesting, and I think Matthew Walker mentioned this in one of his podcasts about several studies where that fluid has one of 2 options. When it goes into the brain, if there is glucose in the brain, it will attach to a glucose molecule and it will take that out, leaving the plaque. It will attach faster to the glucose molecule because of where it is in the blood, leaving all that plaque. So really important, not only for you to sleep, get into REM cycles better, is not eating. And then the drinking is more because you'll get up and pee in the middle of the night. You can go through your sleep rhythm. Yeah. So it's really hard to not eat or drink 3 hours before, but that helps you have deeper sleep. And then, the long-term effects of it helps that fluid do what it's supposed to do, which is remove plaque from your brain. So yeah, that would be my quick one. But then also just like your addiction to caffeine, like you can't do the cycle of like boost with caffeine and then I can't sleep. And so then I don't sleep. So then I need more caffeine and it becomes this, crazy cycle. So just another thought. I think if you always have one of my high school coaches, the assistant, always had a Diet Coke, like every practice. And it's like, you're modeling something to the players. Right. And I'm not saying never. I drink caffeine sometimes. I'm not saying never. I think of it as like, I've got 12 bullets a year in that caffeine gun. It's like, is this worth one of the bullets? Like you need it sometimes.
Oh,
like,
12 a year. Oh,
model. I haven't. I've probably broken that this year with all the transition and moving across country. But that's generally my philosophy.
Love it. What's the best thing that you've borrowed lately?
I would say 2 things. Oh God, it's so hard to pick one, but A Coach's Guide to Teaching by Doug Lamov. Doug has become acquaintance friend. We worked, one of his colleagues, or both of them are working as consultants in professional sports. And so we had some calls throughout the spring and we're debriefing all sorts of things. And Doug's book is just, there's so many things I've borrowed out of that. so many things that were reaffirming to, the studying I've done for 10 years to be the best basketball teacher I can be. But yeah, just so many cultural things. And I think what have I borrowed, specifically because I'm working on this project in youth development, some of his videos of coaches living it out, like an example on the book's website. You can go and watch example clips of it happening. And there's this one soccer coach coaching, I don't know, 6-year-olds, and it is insanely impressive how he's used some of the structure and teaching methodology to not only improve their performance and their skill, but just like so that every single player gets a touch. And then the other thing I would say I stole recently is, and I'll share that video that Noah LaRoche around how to teach spacing, player spacing, was really interesting. And showing them the data of that is something I will now do more often. But yeah, and something else might come back to me. Because I've been in a lot of basketball discussions, and you know what? I can't say who it's from, as I don't want to get them in trouble. But we were on because it's like one of the country's national teams, like secret sauce, but a very respected country in basketball would be pretty obvious. They do this really cool wheel game where in their youth development and all the way up through their program, where a coach has the ball, there's, let's say, 5 cones, and the first player cuts out and the coach throws him the ball. And as he catches the ball and gets vision, the timing is the next player on the baseline should be cutting around a second cone, either cone next to them. And then it's a pass to them. And I'm cutting through and going to the back of the line on the baseline. But as soon as the second player catches, a third player has to be rounding a different cone. Right. And so it's teaching them all. It's just like insanely quick ball movement and vision, but I can also catch and pass and hit the cutter. So let's say you were the first person, you caught it, right? You kicked it to me. As I'm catching it, I could throw it back to you on a pass and cut. And then the third player would be coming around a cone and the coach would have a second ball and hit him with that ball. And then the fourth player is going around a second cone. And it's a wheel of continuous movement. And so, I definitely have borrowed that lately. And it's phenomenal. It's chaotic at first.
I love that.
Insane for teaching spacing and timing and vision for players. So
that ability to move on time, to not be too early, to not be way too late. That's a skill, but it's really hard to teach it. People almost call it he has a good feel for the game, and how do you teach feel? Well, he just has it. It sounds like that's a drill that can teach feel and timing really well.
Yeah. So he couldn't send me a video of it, but I've experimented with it and it's pretty interesting.
Okay. I love it.
So I can't send any links or anything. But
Thanks for that, man. Thanks for the teasing that up and then nothing. You get
Hey, I was just grateful. I got on. It's the head of youth development. He was in the
that's good.
And now
I think you described it well, though. I mean, I can see it.
Program. And man, just a conversation with him, it was enlightening to say the least.
Coaches, the one thing that every team needs is confident shooters. The last 8 years at Grapevine Faith, our teams have averaged 354 made threes each season. I love getting to share with coaches how our shooters train and, more importantly, how they think. If you would like to enhance your shooting culture at your school, contact me directly at jamodipodcast@gmail.com.
Speed round.
Uh-oh.
Quick questions. First thing that pops in your head, yell it out. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Cookies and cream.
Oh, I thought you might say none because I didn't think you're a big sweets guy.
Listen, ice cream is the thing.
I knew.
Anybody who lives with me, I eat really healthy so that I can have a pint of ice cream multiple times a week.
See, I knew you were a good guy. For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Shot clock. I've changed on that. Shot clock.
I was guessing the other way for you. Yeah. Texting or talking?
Who?
Nice.
Who?
Favorite holiday? You can always pass.
Most American holidays are on the back of something really terrible. So Valentine's Day, maybe, but it's a ton of commercialism. I hate commercials themselves. None.
Okay, there you go.
Gratitude, but Thanksgiving can't be celebrated because what it really is about. So, yeah, gratitude. I would say every day is a holiday for me.
There it is. Invisibility or super strength.
Ooh, invisibility.
If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
Dinosaurs.
Interesting. That's a first. Love that. Place you most want to travel. That's hard because you've been a ton of places, but it may be a place you just love to go. I think I know. I think I know, but
New Zealand.
oh, okay. I was gonna say South Africa, but that's close, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's that's more home. I've been to so many
down
places,
there. Okay.
South Island of New Zealand.
Last one, probably the most important question: Godfather or Star Wars?
Sorry,
Godfather or Star Wars?
the movie. Sorry, Star Wars.
Yeah, the force is strong with you. Most coaches, I think, they want to say Star Wars, but they got to say Godfather because they think it sounds good. As a coach, I should be.
Yeah,
About
the pro guy I was training for those 3 months, all the mental stuff. He's like, I'm pretty sure that you actually are just trying to be a Jedi, and I was like, I think Dino was a Jedi, so.
Oh, no doubt. All of you PGC guys are though. There's something about you for sure. Hey, tell us a little bit about the project that you're working on. You mentioned two things that you wanted to come back to. Maybe I think a link but tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So my friend, a different individual named Tim, has you know came over as a immigrant from Russia and didn't have a chance to really make it into college basketball. Played some semi-pro basketball, and then has had a vision to impact youth basketball through tech. And there's actually several people in this space doing it. So I'm learning as we're going through. And so yeah, he and myself and Brittany Donaldson, who was the first was data analytics with the Raptors and then became the youngest assistant coach in NBA history and one of the 5 females. She was with the Raptors, won the championship last year because she has this really cool background she's a PGC grad. I've mentored her since PGC and I watched her. She played college basketball, really brilliant mind. And so, yeah, she just was the perfect pick of what we want to do with tech, but basically having measurements for BQ, body quotient, IQ, intelligence quotient, and EQ, emotional quotient, and measuring a lot of the EQ and IQ stuff as much as we can through automation and tech. So think about PGC and all the amazing EQ things that we teach, but actually doing that where instead of a traditional box score, there's almost a totally different box score. So yeah, and actually that guy Noah LaRoche I was telling about, the link I'll share, he has like a cognition score that he keeps for his players, which is really interesting. And so yeah, we're the vision though, because Tim took his son's team through a basketball season and tried to implement as many of the PhD things, and then he had some of the same players in baseball and did some of the same cultural things. And for those kids, when they had 2 seasons, like who they were as little humans just totally went off the charts. And so the vision is, could we have a 3-sport 9-month program where no matter what sport you're playing, it's the same life development and EQ development through all 3 sports, all the while scaled with technology so that you don't have to train up. You can have great coaches, but you don't have to train up world-class coaches and have 50 of them watching all these little things that hopefully technology can assist with. So that's what we're exploring. I think the development guy who was with the Thunder, who did the whole Harden and Ibaka and all those guys, he's trying to do something similar. So we're hopefully going to chat soon. And then, Adam Turner, he's left PGC and is doing some really fascinating stuff with AI, where they're trying to do a lot of the basketball IQ stuff with AI. So it'd be really interesting. It's a really fascinating, creative thing. And then I likely will be, helping with. I think PGC is ready for another step up in its curriculum, and really with the key focus on decision making and making. Yeah. And I think the whole cognition piece is the next step of basketball. And so, because of all my experiences working with those consultants, which was super fascinating in 2020, they basically help NFL, MLB, and NBA coaches become better teachers. So learned a ton through that. And then obviously with this new project, learning a ton around tech and around cognition and all these sorts of things, I think PGC is ready for some enhancements that I think would be pretty exciting. So I might be doing that over the next couple of years, but the youth development is kind of what's getting the majority of my attention right now.
That's exciting, man. Well,
it'd be cool if we can pull it off. It'd be cool to impact sports but really impact little humans, because most of the people, as we all know, the ball stops bouncing. So if we could really impact them in that way, it would be pretty phenomenal. So we'll see.
Well, and that's what you've been doing and what PGC's been doing already. But that's right. Like you said, the enhancement kind of next step, and bringing technology into it. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, we'll see. There's some new algorithms that have to be written, so it'll. It's not my expertise.
I was going to say I'm
the curriculum guy, but there's a whole engineering team, and lots of engineering teams. I think people are starting to recognize that and see that, you can have all the skill in the world, but if you don't have the cognition to use that skill, when and where to use that skill, and I think that's the biggest thing, is a player working on all these difficult moves when really you don't know how to read the defense. Yeah. So you can predetermine that move and maybe you get that shot off, but could you have gotten a way easier shot just from your cognition? So we'll see.
It's awesome. Well, man, I felt like I was back 8 years ago at a PGC session, just listening to you teach. But no, so many great things, again, golden nuggets for players, coaches, and stuff for parents too. And I just appreciate you, your friendship, and your time today. It was awesome.
I appreciate you, brother. It's good to see you.
Yeah, man. You too.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.